Welcome to First State Kopites. This is episode 19 of season 3. This is a podcast for Liverpool supporters in Delaware and friends of those Liverpool supporters in Delaware. Delighted today to be joined by Justin, who's in New York, and Daz, who's in Baltimore. Sean is busy with family stuff.
I'm currently in hell. Sorry, I just wanted to.
In hell?
Just currently in hell.
Okay, all right. Is that in Baltimore or just a kind of could be anywhere?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sure we'll get to that topic later. So thanks for listening on your preferred platform. We're available on all of them, and we're available on YouTube. Notice that last week's episode had way more hits on YouTube than any in a while. And maybe it was Daz's reference to Sean's attire, where he looked like the Midwest DJ doing a
hoedown.
Hoedown. That was the expression that was eluding me. Yeah,
spinning discs to the hoedown. Yeah.
So if you haven't seen that, well, worth going back and taking a look at Sean's very cool look. So here we are. It's December 18th. Bunch of games have been called off over the weekend. Liverpool's game, as we understand, is still on tomorrow against Tottenham. But essentially, we've had like a pretty, low-key week. I don't know how you describe it. 2 home wins. We'll get into that a little bit. We'll talk about the Villa game and the 1-0 win. COVID's probably had more headlines than Liverpool, and clearly there are some Liverpool players who may not be available tomorrow, and that may be more than we already know about. But we've done enough to maintain our league challenge. We'll touch on the Newcastle game as well, but we'll kick off with Villa. There was a lot of hoopla around Steven Gerrard's return. There was, I think it's fair to say, one of the worst refereeing performances that I think I've seen, without there being anything like one thing that you could have said was bad. The whole thing just felt bad from beginning to end. Felt like we controlled the game, and if Sean was here, he could tell us what the XG is. Maybe you guys know what it is, but it felt like a game we should have won much more comfortably. Daz is not going to tell us what the XG is, but I'm still.
I think it was 1.9 to 0.1. Villa created absolutely nothing.
Yes,
and well, we created a lot of that was a game actually where you actually, if you to really tell the story, and I'm going to go way into just Daz's wheelhouse of things that he dislikes. We had a non-shot XG of 3.1, post-shot XG of around 2. That simply tells you we got into positions and didn't shoot.
Yeah,
which I think was about right, because we tore them apart pretty regularly. Gerrard's going to get credit from, I think, some media, and I think there's a decent amount of media, as much as I love Stevie, that are going to give him just a free ride until something goes desperately wrong in his managerial career, right? But
yeah,
tactically, Villa just they went there to park the bus and see if they could get something on, keep it tight for 65, 70 minutes, and then see if they can pull a smashing crap like that. There was nothing particularly tactically astute about what they did. It was a lot of Nakamba and John McGinn. You guys just run a lot and potentially foul quite frequently too.
But I think that's pretty much insert name of other EPL team outside of the top three's general game players. Defend for your lives, and at some point they'll give us something, and you're going to have to capitalize on that. And I think Sean was talking about this yesterday. Was he sent us the link to the Tompkins Times piece about how we're very much a risk reward team now, and we really live on that knife's edge. And a lot of and you see it more and more. It's like we're backing our center backs to go 1-on-1 now with pretty much anyone. And you saw Konate basically stuffed Alan Saint-Maximin in his back pocket right next to Ibrahimovic. So it's working, and when it doesn't work, it looks dodgy, because we're not used to seeing this type of defending anymore, where you back your center backs to stand large and stand up and be counted, and when it goes wrong, you're like, oh, that was horrible. How did this ever happen? But you run that risk, right? It certainly makes for interesting watching, and keeps your cardiologist on the speed dial.
Well, let's dig a bit more into the Villa game, because in the end we had what some sources, apparently Robbie Savage among them, were claiming was a dodgy penalty. It's like, I don't know. I don't even know what a penalty is
I'm just
anymore.
going to go out there and say, fuck Robbie Savage. Fuck him in a Robbie Savage hole. He's such a muppet.
Well,
yes, I will give Robbie Savage this. Yes, the softest of the obvious 3 penalties that were in this game that should have gone in Liverpool's favor was called. Yes, he called the softest of the 3 obvious ones.
Yeah. Well, there was some dodgy calling on one of the channels I watched where they said Mane went down very easily and the guy pulled him back in the penalty area, and then they proceeded to sort of somehow give James Maddison a pass on the most blatant of English dives. There's a particular dive I think that these English players do, Kane amongst them, where it looks so uncomfortable. It does not look natural at all. But anyway, Maddison got a penalty against Newcastle for doing the same thing.
Well, so Robbie Savage's idea of what like a stone cold penalty looks like is, have you ever seen the movie Excalibur?
Yeah.
When they're just cutting strips out of each other in armor and how clunky it looks. Like in my head, that's what I see what Robbie Savage is like, what a penalty is supposed to look like. It's 2 guys in armor just cutting strips out of each other, and the one that happens to stand up wins the penalty. Or falls down rather wins. It's just like, it's a foul. Yeah. If it's outside the box, the referee is going to give that. Now, a friend of mine raised this, and I think he's not the only one that's done this. Unless it's a true goal scoring opportunity, maybe turn it into a direct free kick.
Yeah. I think there's some, having looked at the Rudiger penalty, where like for such a powerful individual to fall over so easily was just kind of laughable. But he's definitely not scoring a goal from the edge of the 18 with his back to goal, is he?
Here's the other thing: the goes down too easily argument sometimes. Like in particular, if we're going to talk about the Salah and Mings penalty, Mohamed Salah is what, 5'9" and 150 pounds. How big is Tyrone Mings? Yeah, he is going to be able to throw Mohamed Salah over very easily. He's much bigger than him, and he's also a really strong professional athlete. Like, make it seem like, oh yeah, he's going down easily. It's no, because this giant human being is pushing him to the ground, and there's no concept of equal force, because Mo Salah putting up equal force against Tyrone Mings is going to bounce off and fly away.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's extrapolate into the Newcastle game, where people were howling bloody murder that Trent somehow disemboweled Ryan Fraser inside the box. And then let's rewind that to the first half, where Lascelles 2-hand extend shoves Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain off the ball, who has position.
Yep.
And then no, we didn't see anything wrong with that. Like, come on, man. You've got to there's goose and there's gander. What's good? If you want to, fine, you can have one if we get one. Yeah, how about that? So it finishes 4-2.
Well, the narrative, and I don't want this to be all about penalties. Maybe we'll kind of just do one more quick thing on it. The thing I thought was really interesting was how much they allowed the narrative to be like, well, they got a penalty, but we probably should have had one too, with the incident with Ings and Alisson, where first of all, Ings pushes Matty into Alisson, which is how the whole thing starts with. But then I saw a slow motion replay on the Premier League show where actually Ings pushes the ball, kicks the ball, and Alisson actually saves it. So it's like you can only see it from one angle. It looks kind of weird from the back. So there's no penalty in this scenario, but somehow that's allowed to play out.
But Paul, I do want to focus back to one thing you did talk about earlier, because you mentioned this, and I think that it merits definitely a bit of discussion. Stuart Atwell's refereeing in this game was actually so bad that it was performance art.
There's a title for the episode.
Yeah, it was. I mean, my favorite is when you're when you're taking your time to try to get Emi Martinez to put the ball in play. You walk over to him, and you're pointing at your watch for 25 to 30 seconds, walking over to him. Yeah. To tell him to hurry up. It's like, no, that's not how you get him to hurry up. You get him to hurry up by threatening to throw him out of the game by giving him a yellow card. Yeah. He could see you give him the yellow card from 50 yards away, and then walking every single substitute to the sideline as they were going. Once he tried to get onto Villa's time wasting. The other one that really was amazing to me was just The application of the advantage rule throughout the game was to call it inconsistent is an insult to the term inconsistent. It was just literally every single thing that you can possibly do to either control the nature of how the game was being played from a time perspective or just in general ensuring any form of game flow.
Yeah.
He was like, nah, fuck it. We're not doing that.
Yeah, that is actually the worst aspect when all is said and done about some of these teams. When you have the kind of referee that lets people get away with all of this nonsense and constantly stopping the game, then that's a really good tactic. I think I used to describe it as like, are people trying to be Burnley? But there's so many teams now trying to be Burnley. I'm not sure they've got the trademark on the tactic. It's like any opportunity, we're going to stop the game. And if the referee doesn't pick up on it, then we're only going to have the ball in play for like 30 minutes.
Well, anybody can be Burnley, but only one person can be Stuart Atwell.
Yeah. I hadn't realized he'd been removed from the Premier League list of referees about 10 years ago.
So apparently this was the first game he had at Anfield 3 years. 3 years,
yeah.
Wow.
And somehow we've never actually lost a game where he's refed us, but at the same time, I'm not sure that was like, him trying to give us any sort of advantage.
No. Well, sometimes we win with Martin Atkinson, and he has been demonstrated to be anti-Liverpool. So I think that's about how good the team is, not whether the referee helps us.
I mean, I just think we need a referee who has 2 sons with tickets in the Cop End.
Well, let's, so we didn't even mention Steven Gerrard, and I'm not sure we need to, but there are some tactical things that Villa have done, actually, which are different, because I read a piece in The Athletic, so I'm so much wiser about that. One of them is about the midfield. I don't know if you noticed, but Douglas Costa was basically playing auxiliary left back for a lot of that first half, particularly, which is why Salah didn't end up with as many chances as he normally has. And that apparently is a Stevie G thing. They run much more, they're much deeper, and it's the fullbacks that provide the width. And clearly against us, the fullbacks weren't venturing quite so far forward.
Well, the fact that he left Buendia out of his lineup tells you that what his overall tactic was going to be.
Yeah. So you're saying that the 2 people he learned the most from tactically were Rafa Benitez and Jurgen Klopp?
It felt a bit more Rafa than Jurgen, actually.
It does, but getting the fullbacks, I mean,
right.
We never really flew the fullbacks that much under Rafa. Like the closest thing we ever had under as an attacking fullback under him was I think the 1 year that he had Glenn Johnson.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, if Arbeloa would go anywhere near the halfway line, you get a nosebleed.
So I'm stuck as to where we are, because I just had a moment where it's like, Rafa, thank you very much for the 2 points that Chelsea dropped.
Well, in terms of Stevie G, like one point that you made earlier was like I think Justin, you said about like they're going to give him as much latitude as possible until such time as they can't because he's failed. He's done a pretty bang up job at wherever he's been thus far. You could say what you want about Rangers. It's basically a two horse league that but the number of points that he amassed and what he managed to do in Europe is like it
was a 1-horse league when he got the job.
Yeah.
Sure. Well,
yeah.
But so how many points? He's lost 2 against City and us, and he's won 4 now? Is that 3?
Yeah, and he has, and it's also you have to grade on a curve here too, because like us and City are 2 of probably the best sides ever at the moment, considering what we've done over the last 4 or 5 years. So, there's not a ton of to either of those 2 sides at the moment.
That's fair.
So I think we can give him a warm pat in the back. I know there's a lot of chat about like what Stevie should do. Should we chant his name? Like, what is he allowed to celebrate goals? Like, he could rip off his shirt and run around the pitch half naked for all I care. It's like he's no longer a Liverpool player. Like he's there to do a job, and I guess like you can expand that to pretty much anyone that comes to Anfield. Like people are like, oh, John Joe Shelby, so disrespectful. He hasn't played for us in since 1845. Like why should we really care?
There is a bit of a difference there, though, because one of the commentators said it's been a while since he graced the Anfield stage, and it was like, graced? I'm not sure John Joe Shelby ever graced the Anfield stage, whereas Stevie G has quite a different history. I thought it was fascinating.
I will give I always have to mention this around John Joe just because it
I know what
happened.
you're going to say.
You did this.
38
You did
minutes,
this.
38 minutes into a game against United where he gets sent off. He did flip off Fergie. So you know what? I can at least respect it because I've thought the same thing.
Grace may not be the word though. That's the
Grace is not a word that I would usually link with John Joe Shelby.
No, I by the way, I don't know if you heard apparently he did someone reported this. Gerrard did an interview after the game, and he said most of his family who usually go to Anfield didn't go because they didn't want to see him get battered.
Get battered, yeah.
I mean, I did. I went out to watch the game. It was before the weekend where everybody in New York City got COVID. But my emotional state was effectively this: wear Gerrard's shirt and root for him to get beat 5-0.
Right. We did have a bunch of Gerrard shirts out last weekend. That was it was interesting. When it was 0-0, I was kind of blaming them, but
My first ever Anfield game was when we beat Villa 5-0.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
So what year was that?
2000. Oh, my son would have been. It was 2005, 2008. I think is when it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I want to say it was 2008.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
it was March 2008.
I had a sequence where I kept seeing Liverpool lose, and one of the games they lost was a Monday night game. I think it was like 2009. It may have been. I can't remember the year, but we lost Monday night against Villa. So
that was the game where Friedel got sent off for it was a really innocuous challenge on. I think he just turned turtle and Torres fell over him and they threw him off. And then they brought another goalkeeper, another American. I think what's his face came on the other bald.
Guzman.
Guzman.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So I actually have never seen us play Villa in person, but have seen us play against Burnley and West Ham at Anfield. So I feel like I need a game against Villa just to complete the claret and blue collection.
So and all of the teams, of course, play in a different kit when they come to Anfield, which is my way of pivoting to Newcastle. Why were they wearing why were they not wearing black and white anyway? I mean, they never win, so maybe they were trying to change something. I have no idea. But the Newcastle game, which is probably a little bit fresher in the memory, no Van Dijk, no Fabinho, which on the face of it, no
problem.
Could have been an issue against a team that had a little bit of quality around it. Maybe
a team with a midfield.
A team with a midfield, maybe.
A team with a midfield would give us problems there.
Yeah. I thought. So I mean, run with it. What did you make of the Newcastle game? Because it felt like I thought the commentator actually had it quite right, which is that Liverpool were just ever so slightly off the pace of where they normally are. Is that your reading?
I think it was my reading. I think it was also. I think it's very obviously explainable. Mm-hmm. Fabinho was missing, and he's huge towards what we do. And Thiago was actively bad. It happens. He's a great player. But he was actively bad. He gifted Newcastle 2 chances, one of which that Alisson bailed them out of, and one of which Shelby scores on. So
Thiago and Fabinho are like those two songbirds that always seem to sing better together. When one of them's missing, the other one seems slightly off key or morose because the other one's missing. That's kind of what it felt like. It was a very un-Thiago like performance. And there's all the statistics going around about how many games we've actually won with Fabinho and Thiago playing next to each other.
Yeah.
So it's again, like I guess to quote Family Guyism, like everybody gets one. And hopefully that was his one. And they mentioned this and I know we mentioned the Anfield Rap quite frequently because their post-match stuff is usually pretty good, as is their review stuff. Free plug. And they talked about what did they talk about? They talked about a lot of stuff, but specifically around Thiago, I just completely lost what I was thinking about. Anyway, Justin, you are way more astute at this type of stuff. So I'm going to go.
So is it effectively the concept that once you put Thiago into a situation where you're relying on him for defensive output, you neutralize the portion of his game that's useful? Because typically it's Fabinho clogging and plugging holes and holding position and getting Thiago the ball into the spaces where he really likes to play, which then create space for everybody else, which Henderson doesn't do that, right?
Yeah.
Henderson is a chaotic attacking midfielder at this point in his career. Like I don't think Henderson can play the 6 unless the team we're playing against is, like as bad as Watford was when we played Watford. Like for some reason against Newcastle, it really didn't work. Who actually I think would perfectly balance Henderson when he's playing the 6 is Naby, because he does a lot of the work that Henderson would need to get through.
Well, you saw that when he came on too. Granted, it was towards the end of the game.
Naby looked very good, and he progresses the ball. He gets it from point A to point B, which is the one thing that you're kind of missing, that we were kind of missing the other day. I've also felt that like it might not have been Ox's best game in a while as well too.
Really? Okay. I didn't have such a negative opinion about Henderson and Oxlade-Chamberlain. I think the Anfield Rapper viewpoint about Thiago was, some players, are okay playing crap teams and can still step up, and others are kind of like, they're looking at the game afterwards. They've already decided that we're going to beat these quite easily. And I think that was probably one of the challenges the other day.
Well, I think what I was going to bring up, sorry, Paul, the point what you just jogged was, they ostensibly said that he has the memory of a fish when it comes to cock-ups. No matter how many he makes, like he forgets that he's done it, and he's like, it'll be better next time. And he cocked up like 2 or 3 on the bounce, and he's like, I got this, and he just dusted himself down and kept going. So his capacity to be able to back himself, and no matter how poorly he's doing, is admirable. Whereas someone like Ox, if you want to circle, like something like that gets into his head, and it throws him for 4 or 5 minutes. And I think they said that he goes to his bag of tricks to try and do something else to make up for that. Yeah. And if that cocks up because he's putting so much pressure on himself, it just kind of goes into a downward spiral. I think for Ox, he was more industry than he was output, if that makes sense. Yes, I watched him make great runs time and time again, where they held the ball instead of putting it into that space that Salah was leaving, because Salah was checking back up, getting chalk on his boots. He was checking, and then someone was giving him the ball, and all he had to do was put it around the outside for Ox to run onto. And he was making runs like that time and time again, and he was getting frustrated. You could see it. So he was doing the right things. He just wasn't getting the ball. And it was a lot of running for almost. He was doing a lot of thankless work, let's put it that way, and he wasn't getting the rewards from it. And I think that got in his head a little bit. He just seemed, he was slightly off kilter. But I like to see him get minutes, because you can see he's getting stronger and stronger with each performance. And I think he said so much today. Yeah. It's just nice to see him get some sort of consistency back, get those minutes. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him start tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, let's talk. Let's just wrap up then a Newcastle game.
We can't get through without talking about that Trent strike.
Well, that would be a way of wrapping it up.
I mean, stop that. try to stop that. You're never going to. Dubravka got a hand to it too. It's just no. That ball was absolutely walloped, and it was fantastic.
Yeah. It hit like that little float thing at the end too. I think that's why Dubravka didn't quite get it. It was like that slow rise, and like that, and then just tail. Oh, it was a thing of beauty to watch. It needs to be hung in the Louvre. Next did you see the close up on Hayden and Wilson's face after he hit the ball?
No.
I think Hayden said, "Fuck." Just look at his face was priceless. Like, what am I going to do there? I've got a head wound. I was very concussed 65 minutes ago. And also, mad props to Mike Dean for running interference right across the front of John Joe Shelby there. He did that for his kids in the Cup. Yeah. That was for his kids in the Cup.
That's for his kids in the Cup. Sometimes you just have to, do what you can to unsight the rival keeper.
So I thought it was interesting what Trent said about it, actually. So I'm glad we're finishing on this, because clearly it was a high note. But he said he'd been waiting for 5 years to score a goal like that, because that was his reputation, like as a midfielder for the under 23s. Like he scored a ton of goals from outside the box like that.
Well, I mean, he never got an assist for that, by the way.
Who got an assist?
He passed him the ball. Robbie.
I mean, it kind of shows you how the assist statistic can be misleading. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't score those kinds of goals because of where he picks the ball up too. Like, it's cutting in on your. He's not a player who's going to get a lot of opportunities to cut in on his right foot from where he plays on the pitch. But the results speak for themselves as far as actually moving him closer to the middle to try to get that kind of goal. When in reality, the service he gives out wide is just so good.
It's filthy. What the hell was he doing there?
Well, that's a good question. I do want
to off of a free kick.
A quick shout out to Brian, who's part of the Delaware Supporters Club, because various points in the second half he was yelling "shoot," to people who are outside the box, and us wise people were like pointing out that the chances of scoring from outside the box is actually very low in the Premier League. So we were actually debating with him at the end of the game whether Trent had shot it from 25 or 30 yards. But anyway, so Brian, if you're listening, thank you. Maybe shooting from the outside the box is not such a bad thing after all. There is one thing we talked about assists. It is one thing I do want to circle back on about Mane. I think has gone a bit under the radar, and I went and checked this. According to the Premier League stats, Mane has 1 assist, and it's like, doesn't he get 2 assists alone for the game the other night? Apparently not. Is the answer to that? I thought he was actually really impactful quietly, even if he isn't. He hasn't scored in a while.
Well, I mean, he passes that ball to Jota, where Jota has his header saved and finishes the rebound, but that doesn't count as an assist. But it's as close as getting an assist as you're going to get.
Yeah. It's more of an assist.
He takes the shot that results in Salah's goal for our second.
Yeah.
Nope, didn't get an assist for that either.
But getting it's where like watching games by goal contribution doesn't necessarily tell you the story, because sometimes just a player destroys another team and doesn't do that. I mean, you could go back and watch Barcelona 0, Liverpool 4, and Mane is the only one of our normal front three plays in that game. He doesn't register a goal or an assist, but he was spectacular and critical towards us winning.
Well, you can say the same thing for Gini Wijnaldum, but he carried a lot of water and never really got much of but he was pivotal and instrumental to what we do. Yeah. It's interesting, like just to talk about, I wanted to round off with Sadio Mane. The same a-holes that were saying he goes down too easily said that he should have gone down for that when you get pulled down in the box against Newcastle for our second. Yeah. It's like my head's chocker. Like it's from spinning around so much, just deciding which narrative you guys are going to pluck from the bag this time.
Yeah, we should do a whole show actually on tired old narratives, because there's quite a lot of them out there, and a few of them were trotted out this week around some of Liverpool's players.
We can wear big seafarers jumpers, sucking on corncob pipes with our scullies on.
Yeah. So I'm going to pivot a little bit, because prospectively we're going to play tomorrow against Spurs. Be interesting to look at the starting lineup, especially given the kind of rumors about COVID. It clearly looks like we're going to be without Virgil van Dijk and Fabinho. What would be your guess as to if everyone was available, which may not be the case? What you're thinking about? Maybe the key thing is midfield and front three. Justin,
I think in the midfield tomorrow, if as rumored, obviously Fabinho's out, and as rumored Henderson is, I would go Thiago, Keita, Ox. But I doubt that he'll do. But I doubt Jurgen will do that, and I would think that basically you're going to see Thiago, Milner, and either Ox or Keita, one of the two.
Yeah, I think the performance the other night suggests that Keita is being readied for a big game soon. Whether Tottenham's still a big game is perhaps a question. But Daz, what would your take be?
I'll just back Justin's role right there. It's my concern is that he puts Milner in the 6.
I should also let everybody know that Milner has tweeted.
Yes, I saw that too. I was just about to mention that. Which means
he is going to start.
Oh, that's great insight. Wish we could have got that out there earlier.
You should put some money on that. There's got to be some odds in Vegas.
Yeah.
I'd agree. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I think based on Bobby's performance for his cameo, I'd probably go same front three. that we started with against Newcastle. It's kind of a no-brainer, really. I think Jota played really well. He could have had two. He got that one that was saved off the goal line from that toe poke, which was probably our best chance in this, like legitimate chance in the second half.
Why can't he score on an open goal?
Mhm.
He scores hard ones. Why can't he score on an open goal?
He's a Sports Illustrated guy, man. Straight highlight reel.
Oh, I saw a whole piece, by the way, that the Athletic did about how the chance against Wolves. So we don't need to talk about this, but the chance against Wolves actually had a really low XG, much lower XG than you might imagine. Anyway,
if you're just trying to blow up XG as a meaningful measure, you might be doing it there. I feel like the XG on that should have been like 1.5 alone.
Oh, I think it might have been 0.15 actually.
It should have been 1.5. He had an open goal to shoot at, and then he basically had another situation in the same movement where he still had any side of the goal to shoot at.
Yeah, the goalkeeper was in the stands with a pie and a coffee.
Yeah.
So Spurs, yeah. So to my mind, I have no idea what we're going to expect from them. But Firmino has a really good scoring record, I think, at that stadium. He scored every game he's played at the Tottenham Stadium, whatever it's called.
Yeah, he has actually, now that I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
The past 2 years running, he scored there.
Yeah.
I don't know what to expect from Spurs because they had probably no good training time because of the COVID outbreak. We have no idea who there actually had COVID because it seems like the only team telling anybody who has COVID is us.
They are. Yes, we are. Mm-hmm.
And I also just have no idea who's like in form or good for them because I haven't watched a ton of them. And I know that Conte is a manager who makes demands of players that some of the players on Spurs probably can't handle. Obviously, Harry Kane. Yeah, is Dele Alli going to play if like Son or any of the other, or Mora or any of the other attackers have COVID? Like who's actually recovered enough from COVID to not like feel like crap from them too? Because we also don't know how vaccinated their team is.
No.
We don't know how badly they were afflicted by it either. It could just be like the same as our guys. It could be asymptomatic kind of. I think that's what they're saying about Virgil was he's just the PCR said that he's positive. I don't think he's suffering too badly from the effects of it.
I don't think any of our guys supposedly are. I believe that they're all. I thought they were all asymptomatic because again, also like
that's what he said. Yep.
Yeah, like our team is fully vaccinated.
Yeah. But this is like to raise the larger point. And I think someone brought this up on a show that I listened to is why is it not required that like if someone has an ankle injury to report what the level of injury is? If we live with coronavirus now. It's how is that any more of an invasion of someone's privacy than telling them that he's got a strained quad? Yeah. And I just think that there's a lot of obfuscation that's going on that I think I don't agree. I don't think it's
or for that matter. Also, these guys are famous people. A lot of people who run into them in public who might not, if they hear like, oh, Virgil van Dijk, I saw him at like, the supermarket and the one time he actually goes out into like, I don't know if Virgil goes to the supermarket. I'm just throwing this out there. It's like in interaction with mere mortals. If you saw him and you're interacting with him, like maybe that actually might spur you to get tested as well too. Like those types of things actually are useful. Contact tracing does occur in some ways. It's just certain people are more famous than others.
Yeah, I saw him at Pop World with a shirt off on Disco Biscuits.
All right. Is there anybody? I think you're confusing him with James Milner on a Wednesday night.
Kyle Walker. Any night.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the idea of seeing James Milner with his shirt off, all pilled up at a club would be very funny.
But he doesn't drink, so
he does. I don't think you see that. I think that he's like
Ribena and pills are his thing.
Yeah,
off his tits with Ribena.
Ribena. How did we get to Ribena?
Do you ever see the Benny Hill one with Benny Hill, like where he has like all the names of all the he's putting the boxes of stuff into a shopping basket, and he's like, whether I been a good girl or a bad girl? No, it's like that's really 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 random. That just popped into my head. It's like an old Benny Hill sketch with Ribena.
I'm sorry, Paul. It takes 3 people to do a podcast, but 2 of us have decided that tangents are the way of it.
Yeah, I'm okay with tangents, but Benny Hill is probably not the tangent I want to go down.
The way of the tangents. That's a great name for a book.
Yep, I'm still going to go with Stuart Atwell's performance art, the title of the podcast, by the way.
Man plays ref.
That's good. That's good.
No, but I mean, what are Spurs going to do tomorrow? Like, I don't know. Could do anything. I just would bank against Harry Kane scoring.
Yeah.
I think we mentioned this before. My problem with it is they've had so much time off. Conte has had no time with them to try and instill anything. So you could say that, granted, these guys might have actually been sick, so they're not showing up at practice. Again, we don't know because they're not telling us anything. But a coach with his chops, given that much time to no other distractions whatsoever. And did they close down their training facilities? Is that what I remember hearing?
I think they had to.
But they were supposedly ready to play Burnley on Wednesday or Thursday.
Wednesday, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's weird to me is like what constitutes ready to play? Like, what's the threshold there? Like, what kind of training time you're doing? Like, if you have a player who is like, what kind of testing testing regimen have they gotten to implement?
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like they need like a few weeks to just isolate players, get them all vaccinated, and just start over. But they're not going to do that.
Well, I guess we don't know. What I feel like we do know is that the only other teams who may have got the same level of vaccination are, I think, Villa and Leeds. Like, people have talked about them. Nobody else seems to be in that list of like 90+% vaccinations. So, and which I think is part of why they don't want to be transparent, right? Because then it's much easier to say we've all been vaccinated, but some of us have been tested positive, than it is to say, actually, we've got a few idiots in our squad who have decided that they know better, and now they have COVID, and it's spread through the squad as a consequence.
So go ahead, Justin.
This is one of those spots where I am actually pretty proud of how some of in particular, how Jurgen Klopp is handling this too, because he's going out there telling people to get vaccinated, and there are people on Merseyside who might get vaccinated because Jurgen Klopp actually says to. Yeah. And I like exactly how he's using whatever influence he does have on people to just sit there and not try to be like David Moyes, who went out and, said perhaps the stupidest thing I've ever heard this week, which is about that, we need to treat opinions on vaccine as cherished, prizing diversity, treating anti-vaxxers as representing some sort of diversity of thought, which to me that's not diversity of thought. It's ignorance. It's ignorance, disguised as virtue.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah. But Jurgen Klopp going out and saying, get vaccinated. Mo Salah go out and saying, you don't know more about me than playing football than I do. I don't know more about vaccines than doctors do. Like, those are things that you actually genuinely want to hear people who have influence go out and say. And it's refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah. He's basically our own G.I. Joe PSA. Yeah. And that does stick with people, which is what you want to hear, because he does have people's ear. He does have people's sentiment, and that, like, to your point, that can sway them. That could be that 1 or 2% that swings them into like, this is probably like the man knows what he's talking about, and the best part about that is he's not a shock jock. He's not being ridiculous with his assertions or with his, like, it's measured. Like, it's common sense.
Yeah.
And again, I respond better to that than someone telling me, like, go and do it or else one of your bollocks is going to explode, because it's potentially because I do read, and I am somewhat measured in my thought process. But even for those people that aren't, that maybe that is the difference. And it's like, to your point, it's refreshing that he is the man for us, and we are the team for him. Is the only way that I can put. I've known that for years, but this is, every time the man opens his mouth, it just becomes more and more apparent that this is like one of those matches made in some heaven of choice, Shangri-La heaven, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think that there's just something to be said about the fact that we'd all, to a point, we're all rooting for a piece of laundry, because a lot of it, we're going to root for Liverpool sides regardless for the most part of who's on them, right? But doesn't it feel better to actually admire the people who are wearing that laundry?
Yeah. So this reference will be lost on both of you, I'm sure, but it reminds me actually of the 2008 Phillies, who mostly seemed like a very kind of decent bunch of people, which I don't think most teams actually have.
It's not a reference lost on me as a diehard Met fan who saw the 2008 Phillies break my heart.
But like, what was that? Shane
Victorino?
Yeah.
The Flying Hawaiian
Generally seemed like such a nice guy. Anyway, we digress. But I'm sure there were people on that team who you would have like since come.
I will. This podcast is geared towards people in Delaware. I recognize the pull of Philadelphia sports there. I will not go out of my way to alienate anybody.
Just tell me the 10 people who've since been arrested for various crimes. They seem to me have like such a like decent ethos. And
I'm not going out of my way to alienate anyone.
Child trafficking, organ harvesting, the worst crimes against humanity.
Well, Shane Victorino, it just struck me as being like a genuinely. Anyway, let's. But so I think the no dickheads policy is paid off. That with the kind of people we have on our team. Don't want to talk about any of the teams right now in that context. Manchester City, Chelsea. But,
they're chock full of a-holes. Bernard Silva is one of them.
Oh God, yeah. But he's the greatest player on the planet right now. Just letting you know.
Just the disrespect that's sprinkled, not even sprinkled, just lavishly spread all over Salah. It's like, it's unbelievable. Like, anyone with eyes can tell you that he's by far and away the best player on earth right now. It's not even close. It's not marginal.
Yeah. In fact, I couldn't find a single only Salah reference this week, because it was all about Salah has the most goals and assists, and we can't really even talk about anybody else in the same breath. How about, I don't even know if it's worth previewing any of the other matches, because who knows if we'll play Leicester, right? Because they also have got they had their game postponed because they've got COVID issues. And of course, we'd have only played a reserve team in that game anyway. Maybe we'll play Leeds next week, or maybe we'll play Leeds under 18s next week, based on
what
we've seen from them.
3-4. Did anyone?
Right. We're playing their under 18s, but we're not playing them their under 18s because of a COVID outbreak. We're playing their under 18s because every one of their starters is very, very injured.
Yeah, they. I did love the. Did you send that, Daz? The image of the. Was it the? It was a very expensive car parked in a carport.
Rafinha.
A house that did not look like an expensive house.
Rafinha at Leeds right now. Yeah.
So,
he's so good, and he should not be in a relegation battle. Although I think that they're gonna. If you look at the relegation battle, two of those teams are down. Newcastle and Norwich are down already. Like they can. Newcastle. I don't understand what Newcastle's strategy to stay up is going to be, because if you look at what they have to do, it'd be buying from all the teams around them. And like, I don't care how much money you can get for James Tarkowski. The actual financial penalty of falling into the championship is probably more than that amount of money.
Yeah.
They have parachute payments, don't they? They have like those.
And the championship has been, let's put it this way, apparently less good at imposing the rules they have around financials. So there was at least one team promoted, it was QPR, who broke the rules because they made it to the Premier League. Whatever the rules they'd broken, they didn't get punished because they were no longer in the championship. So there may be a window for Newcastle to spend money, which isn't technically allowed.
In the championship. Yeah.
In the championship. Yeah. No.
I mean, because like if you look at the teams that are in that drop zone, Norwich has basically been a shuttling team because they seem to be too good for the championship, but too bad for the Premier League.
Yeah.
I feel like what'll happen is with them, if they go down, I don't think they're getting back to that project. Who could get Premier League football won't go to it. And then if Burnley goes down with the amount of money that they actually have, they're never coming back up. Or I shouldn't say never, but it would be very hard.
Yeah, I think it'd be harder for them than Norwich. I think there was a quote at the game the other day against Villa where someone said their aim is to be in the top 26 teams in the country.
Who's Newcastle's?
Norwich.
Like, you know what, they can accomplish that too, because they're, there's not much else around them. So there's all the football spending in East Anglia just basically goes to them. So like,
Yeah,
they could hypothetically do that because that's the biggest team in their region by a wide margin.
yeah.
You know what I'd love to see happen? Them sign a 42-year-old Luis Suarez.
When he scored a bunch of own goals to keep up his record.
They bring Ruddy back in too. No. The guy's like, just twitching.
I actually want to see Luis Suarez get a testimonial match somewhere and see if he invites John Ruddy. Should.
Wow. So for me, this is a good tangent, much better than the path we were on earlier. How about we round it up? There's a bunch of things out there, obviously, about COVID. People talking about the integrity of the game. We haven't even touched on the Champions League draw and kind of what a huge fucked up effort that was. I did watch Milan yesterday. Happy to talk about that too. I really feel sorry for Thomas Tuchel. All those injuries, it's gotta be hard, when you're only backed by a Russian billionaire and you've got all those oil state teams coming after you.
Yeah, but he also knows the second that he loses the job, the immunity from prosecution for the pile of bodies in his basement goes away.
Dude, Thomas Tuchel's like diamond encrusted nails on a chalkboard. He's such a twat. Like, what are you whining about? You have like 200 million pounds of players that would start everywhere, except for Liverpool and potentially City. Like, what are you whining for? Like, it's more of the same from him. No matter where he goes, it's like he just opens his gob and it's like listen to Fran Drescher.
Yeah. Well,
I'm going to say something. I am going to say something about one of those players, though, that he has on his bench available to him. Timo Werner makes Alvaro Morata look like a steely-eyed finisher.
Is Werner one of those people who currently has COVID, by the way?
I think he is.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll see. I got to say, I could not believe that they managed to drop points against Everton. Because honestly, I watched all of Everton's games since they played us, and apart from their like vicious beating up of Arsenal, which was very physical, they've looked pretty dreadful. So
were they still calling him a fat? They're still calling Rafa a fat Spanish waiter in the crowd. Well, they were calling him that when he was their coach.
To be fair, I think Liverpool fans were calling him that back in the 2010s. So I don't know if we want to. Yeah.
I mean, I want to know if you can insert a laugh track for just that portion when talking about the Chelsea Everton game, because drawing against this Everton side is so bad. So dropping points to them is inexcusable in a title race. I hope I don't regret that later.
My question, okay, so and the topics that you've put up there, what happens to those games that are being postponed? Like, because it affects two teams, not just one.
Yeah.
Now, when do you jam them in? Because is there supposed to be a winter break in January for us?
There is a break because there are some international matches, but there's no
European. We have to play one of our games in that international that break.
We did, yes, we did. Yeah.
So is that what they're planning on doing with those? Because what, United's missed 2.
Oh,
Spurs have missed 2.
Brighton's missed 2.
Yeah,
Brighton's missed 2.
I think if you're still in Europe, which won't be an issue for Man United, then if you're still in Europe, then it's a big issue because there are not many open weeks.
So do they allow them to play them at the end of the year? Because that affects.
No, because like that stupid late Nations League, which isn't like, why would you call anything like the League of Nations, which clearly was not a thing that worked. Anyway, the Nations League starts like 2 days after the Champions League final, which is like a week after the season ends. So there's really no window because the next season starts early because of the World Cup in Qatar.
How much pride do you actually think that different countries take in the Nations League? Like, it's very new. And I can't see how any, like, yeah, it's a trophy, but that I just don't understand how anybody enjoys that. Like, just so many extra games. It gets to the point that Klopp's talking about. The answer is not always more football. The answer is actually playing less of it, so you don't burn these guys out as much. And
Yeah. Well,
it goes, yeah, it goes back to the same thing like with UEFA with screwing up the draw too. The custodians of the game are incompetent and corrupt in the worst possible measurement and combination of the two.
Yeah. So I'm going to finish on the draw because did you actually see physically what they did, how they do the draw?
I've watched it once and just why?
Bananas. It seems like it's designed to be messed up. They've got like tubs of balls for all of the teams, like the teams that won the groups. So you got like a Bayern Munich, a Liverpool, Manchester City, Man United. And somebody randomly, well, I guess it was the third-party software that sent them in the wrong direction, of course. But you randomly pick balls out of the thing, and then they shake them around, and Andre Arshvin, in this occasion, picks out the team. But they don't take away the trays of the teams that have already been picked. So at the end of it, you've got it's like 8 different buckets there with lots of balls in them. It's not surprising that they kind of messed it up.
How are they blaming this on software is the other question I have. How do you blame something that's that manual on software?
I've worked in corporate America. It's what you do. It's like, it was the
software. I know, I have two.
And it was a third-party software.
Yeah. I mean, I know what they're doing there. I understand, but it's just the same time, like.
The third-party software just recently being given a sedative.
Yeah. And did you see the bizarre thing at the end, which they didn't even explain, where the 6 teams left and they say, we can't play Villarreal? Did you see that?
Yeah, where they had to explain that. I think it was which team couldn't play Villarreal.
We couldn't play Villarreal.
We couldn't play them but it wasn't because we couldn't play them.
Right.
We could have eligibly drew them. It was the remaining 2 teams in the draw could not play someone else. So Villarreal could only be drawn against one of them instead of us. So eliminated that alley. Look, I was just happy that we didn't see PSG, which everybody thought was going to be the nail on thing that happened. Not because
yeah.
What?
PSG.
I'm devastated that didn't happen. That was my ultimate prediction. Because to be the best, you got to beat the best. And we are the fucking best.
But they're not the best. They're just an annoyance, and they could just take you, even though not being better than you, they could just take you out because, like, who knows? Messi might have like a short end of prime, like, surge.
Messi. Yeah. So
I think for me, Messi, it was exactly what that bloody draw was. And then Sergio Ramos was saying he's willing to strap on the body armor and charge the parapets against Real Madrid. I was like, come on, man. You're probably going to be injured, you old bastard.
Well, it would be the ultimate, wouldn't it, if he took out one of like Benzema or Vinicius Jr. And they weren't able to play for a month or two. That would be very fitting end to his career, I would think.
It's how he rolls.
Yes. And on that note,
that single tear as he's taking them down. I'm so sorry.
I was never that convinced about you anyway, despite my 15 years of playing there. Yeah. Seems weird. Okay. All right. I think love the chaotic episode. Still debating what we should call it, but do like the whole shout about Stuart Atwell's performance art. Definitely not Benny Hill. That was a step too far. Someone did say we needed music to close it out. Thank you. Yeah. So we'll be back. Probably if the League Cup game happens, we'll be back then. Hopefully we've got a special guest on. Hopefully we'll also be able to chat about the Reds continuing to win. Thanks, Justin. Great to see you. Daz, great to see you as always. If you enjoyed the podcast, share it with a friend. Follow us on Twitter. We only tweet and retweet from sources we think are credible. I think that's it.